coming up on the log cabin mine. Rob was mentioning that there used to be a gate across the road and a place where you could pull over and park. So we'll see how it looks today. Hey, Oreo, what do you think? Pretty excited, huh? Yeah. You're an outdoor person just like me, right? Yeah, I heard your favorite hobbies is your stick. We'll have to find you a new stick. Well, that's where we park for the mine. Walking to the front entrance to the log cabin mine, and you can see that it's reminding everybody to be respectful of all the historical artifacts. Oreo is so excited.
What are you sniffing, Bubba?
I think Oreo must smell a lot of different smells. It's getting him excited. Here's the remains of a wooden water tank. You often see these actually on the tops of buildings, like in New York City, you'll see these wooden water tanks. Once they have water in them, they'll hold water very well. I think if I was a miner stuck up here at the mine for the winter, I'd want to have a little dog or some kind of pet, or maybe even a canary, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Canary would probably be the most important.
Right. I saw an interview with some of the people that actually worked up here, and there were several of them that had musical instruments, and they would make music, and they worked hard, and it seemed like they had some went to a lot of different little parties in the area down by Lee Vining when they could get into town. But they had a little band. They had, I think, a 4-piece band, but the drummer had to come in from a different area. So Rob has a lot of experience with electricity and construction and that kind of thing. And did you say that you think that pole might be live?
I think the upper one is live, and the bottom one is the old feed coming into the mine.
So we're okay to step over this then?
This is, yeah, this is the old.
Look at, I think it's broken on the base there. Huh. There's the break on that pole. Well, back in the day, this is kind of how it worked, is that the rocks came across through here and went into this area that I'm pointing at right there, and it was crushed into smaller rocks, a certain size. From there, it went from a conveyor belt down over here to the next one, where it was crushed even smaller. And inside there's a big drum that has ball bearings, big ball bearings, and the ball bearing slurry would tumble around in this big steel tumbler with the big, huge steel balls, and it would crush that ore. Then they would take that ore and they would use quicksilver, and they would put it in trays, and there was a couple gentlemen working in there. They would put it on these big trays, and of course the quicksilver would attract the gold. And then that was a 48-hour process. After that time, they would take all that of the gold and the quicksilver, and they would put it in an iron, kind of an iron container, like a big iron urn. And then they would cook that. And when it was cooking, it would burn off the quicksilver. And what was left was the gold. And they would put the gold in a big wooden box. So that big wooden box with the gold, that Mr. Cassidy, Frank Cassidy Sr., would accompany 2 other gentlemen that were carrying shotguns. And they would carry that gold box down to the U.S. Post Office in Lee Vining, California. From there, it was sent to the U.S. Mint on Herman Street in San Francisco, California. Rob, being with your experience with being an electrician, what do we have here with this motor?
That was a large motor.
A large motor.
For a pulley system, and it was 3-phase.
3-phase.
I'm thinking at least 50 horsepower.
50 horsepower.
That was close, it's 60.
60 horsepower. We're getting into the workings of the mine itself. And there's the shaft right there. That's the head frame. It looks like it's just barely standing. And one thing interesting about this mine is the only way they had the communication from the operator to the miners below was there was a cable, and on the cable is a bell, and the bell had a certain codes for the different things that they would communicate. So they would pull that cord on the bell, and that's how they communicated.
Hold on. Oreo, stay here. Stay.
You're probably wondering how deep that the mine is here. Well, the log cabin mine is actually 400 feet deep. It had 4 levels. Now, they basically worked the first 3 levels, and that was at roughly at 280 feet deep. But the last level, which is about 400 feet deep, had about 6 inches of water down there. And what they did is they tunneled through the side of the hill, and they made a place for this tunnel to drain out the last bottom part of the mine from all the water that seeped out in there, and that emptied into Thompson Creek. In 1890, gold was discovered in this area by brothers Jim and John Simpson. So what happened was Jim and John were sitting eating their lunch, and Jim noticed that there was a little chipmunk or a squirrel digging around in where they were eating lunch, and he was watching, and he noticed there was a little glitter of something shiny. And he looked over there, sure enough, it was gold. So in 1909, the brothers Jim and John Simpson, they found the main vein, and they worked the claim on a limited basis from the cabins. And we can see some of the old cabins. That's probably why it's called the cabin mine. And they sold it in 1930. And when it was sold, it entered into a more modern era of the mine. After brothers Jim and John Simpson sold the mine in 1930, as I mentioned, it entered a more era of a bigger operation. And between 1940 and 1942, this mine was the largest producing gold mine in the entire state of California for those 2 years. Now, in 1942, later that year, it was closed by executive order during the Second World War. Unfortunately, it never really came back to life as it did in its former days. It's a lot of mines in the area. After the death of Frank Cassidy Sr., the Garbutt and Hathaway families donated the mine property to the Boy Scouts of America. And later it was acquired by the U.S. Forest Service. And I notice there still seems to be a presence for the Scouts up in the area. I see where there's that cable that they pulled that will ring the bells. And there's the miner's cage right there. That part of the building is getting ready to fall into that hole, looks like to me. Actually, the operator sat in this house adjacent to the mine shaft, and we can go inside and look in and see exactly where he was sitting down, operating all the controls. And that's where he sat. And you can see the power panels and so forth. And all the different mechanical parts of it. Right there. Just walk through here real quick and take a look.
This is a water pump.
Oh, you found a water pump?
This is the water pump right
This is the water pump, okay. There's the water
here. You
pump.
can see it was belt driven.
Right. There's the plate on it.
Look at the size of this. It says here on the label it came from New York. Could you imagine bringing that all the way from New York? It must have come by train and possibly truck.
Yes, actually did come up the mountainside on a truck. There was a father and son pair of truck drivers that hauled everything up here. Actually, there was a father and son pair of truckers called Gus and Augie Hess. Now, Augie Hess was the son, and he was talking about all the big things they had to haul up this mountaintop mine on the truck. Big old 8x8 posts. And he said actually a lot of times the big truck, the front wheels would almost pop up because it was such a steep ascent up the mountain. But he said they never once had an accident. Well, I'm at the Mono Lake Cemetery, and I noticed there's a couple of Hesses that are buried here. And I'm just curious if they're related to the two truck drivers, the father and son truck drivers that were working up at the mine up there. Rob, what did you find over here?
This is a large motor.
This is a large motor.
And it turned the belt system.
Uh-huh.
They ran the water pump.
Right.
And probably the system that ran the hoist as well. And judging by the size of these 1/0 copper wires,
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is probably at least 100 horsepower electric motor.
100 horsepower.
I can't imagine bringing that thing up here. That would have been a feat.
It's always amazing where there's a will, there's a way, you know? Okay, we're ready.
Ding ding!
Going up, crew? Look at this disconnect, Rob. It says it's 200 amps and 575 AC volts. Look at
A
that.
lot of power coming in this little building.
Woo!
3-phase. So this was a 200 amp 3-phase. You can tell the phases by the 3 disconnects. So this would have disconnected the power, turned the power back on. And you can tell by the size of the wire coming in here, this place had a lot of power coming in. There's another large electric motor.
You know, this operation, considering how long it's been since it's been in operation, you can tell that this place was really squared away. These guys were squared away. Everything's labeled. I mean, everything. Look at even that.
Yeah.
Oreo likes it. Yeah. We could work in the winter, all winter. What do you think? Just me and you up here in the mountain.
Lower us down, buddy.
There's a mess hall and a bunkhouse up here, and they used to stay here all winter, and believe it or not, there was accommodations for up to 72 working men up here. And of course, they required a lot of supplies, a lot of food, and during the summertime, the trucks would bring the food up. But guess what? All the food during the wintertime was brought up by foot with men wearing snowshoes. This building here was the wood shop, because you can tell that had a big saw blade on there. Someone must have borrowed that. I don't know if they asked to borrow it, but it's missing now. Had a big blade on here. And looking at trying to figure this out, I guess they'd bring the boards this way and cut them right here. And then if you look around, you can see they had some storage in here too. This looks like concrete bags that got wet, and they are just solid now. And there's some more equipment. There's a belt that's running that too, so that would come over here. That must have run the saw. What do you think, Rob?
It definitely did.
Yeah.
That was a big saw back in the day.
Yes, it was. You're a good puppy. Rob's got lots of experience in construction. He's done lots of things. I think in another state he's like licensed for everything. So he just looked at this and kind of figured this out by looking at it. So what do you think, Rob?
Well, judging by the size of the timbers laying outside,
Yeah.
looks like this is a door that opens up.
Right.
And then these rollers
You roll it on there?
fed the lumber in.
Oh, right here. Okay.
And when
Okay.
it got to the saw's
Oh, that makes sense.
So it would swing through it.
It would be right here. There we
it
go.
would.
And then you put it over there and cut it.
Yeah. See the pendulum up there?
Yeah.
It's on a giant hinge.
If I can get up there. There it is. It looks like one of those big belts on the old tractors, you know, like the old power takeoffs, you know, the big belt on there.
See if it moves, Doug.
It still move?
Yep. It's got a weight on the back. So they pull it through the lumber.
Oh
like
yeah,
this,
look at the weight.
And then as they let it go, the weight
Yeah.
pulled it back. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Like I said, they had a good operation up here. You know, I can just tell by how everything's set up. I wouldn't mind working with these men up here because they had everything squared away. You can just tell.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So this is the outside of the trap door that they would
Right.
open to send the lumber through. And they probably kept it shut so the snow wouldn't drift in.
Right. And look, that board is still there after all these years.
That's amazing. It's weathered.
Well, it's still in one piece, but it's in pretty sad shape. Look at this little picnic table with the view. I'm glad I'm getting a picture of this head frame because it's getting ready to go. It could go at any time. So we'll try to get a little clip of it while it's still standing. Well, everybody, look at this great view of the tailing piles behind me. And I want to note something about this picnic table here, because Rob had a date with his honey, who is now his fiancée, Nelda. They had a date here about a few years back. And Nelda, she works over at the Safeway in Hawthorne. And she's a very personable person and very sweet person, hardworking person over at Safeway. And I mentioned I need some home repairs, and she mentioned that Rob is very experienced in that and could help me with that, and he did. He did a great job helping me at the house, and everything was under budget. Just an excellent job, just a really old school kind of work where he wouldn't let anything be finished unless it was done right, and just an honest, hardworking guy. So I said, you know, this is the kind of person I want to be friends with. So that's kind of how Rob and I met. I think this is one of the bunk houses. It's pretty rough. Huh. Oh, it's pretty dark in here. Oh, the floor seems to be intact. There's the mine right there. There's another larger building. The door is open, and it seems like the floor is still solid. This must have been the kitchen area. Should I walk in a little farther? I'll walk in a little farther. It looks like the floor is stable. Oh, there's the little bathroom. There was the view from the bathroom back in the day. That must be one of the original cabins. Still got some bed frames back here. Can't really see in here too well. Looks like a wood stove. This must be where the range used to be. And the insulation is hanging over from the ceiling. Here's a phone line, a primitive phone line that Rob found. This might be the actual line that Benita used down in Lee Vining to call her dad. She said that she was always worried about her dad, and she took a lot of comfort in being able to check in with her dad. Usually try to call once a day when she could, when the line was working. But they get tons of snow up here. You're talking 25-foot drifts.
I noticed, Doug, this is roofing material on the outer wall.
Right.
So this must face northwest, I would imagine,
Uh-huh.
where all the snow drifted in. They were trying
Right.
to keep the cold and the driving snow out of the room.
Right. Makes sense.
Oreo, what do you think, buddy? It's interesting how all these buildings attach to each other.
Yeah, they're attached. Well, that would make sense with all that snow, you know, because you'd have to really dig to get a passageway when you have 20-foot snow drifts.
And then this one's attached too, so it looks
Yeah.
like you make your sandwich in the bottom,
Yeah,
work your way up to bed.
there you go.
I hope there's no bats, I don't like bats. This would be a bunkhouse.
This must have been the bunkhouse. Oh, look. Goes for ways. The floor is solid, though. Oh, look. That's where the passageway, Rob, goes all the way into the next two buildings. You can see it.
Really?
Yeah, there's a staircase down there. Goes all the way. I won't go down there for safety's sake, but there it is.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Look at the old windows. They had a big crew. Like I said, there's enough room here for a crew of 72 working men. They said actually a lot of people in the area, they heard about that there was a gold mine up here and they were interested in getting some work. And they actually found out that you could make more money growing fruits and vegetables. They grew in the Mono Basin, they grew cantaloupe, watermelon, and all types of fruit. And they also raised livestock. Because you can imagine 72 guys that are working hard were probably pretty hungry. So a lot of people were growing things and selling produce. One man had one field, 5 acres of cantaloupe in the Mono Basin.
You got this piece of steel plate on the floor. Looks like this is where they had the wood stove.
Right?
And that's where the chimney went.
Oh yeah, right through there.
And then it looks like on the backside, or maybe this was the front, one of the coals fell out. That could have been disastrous.
Oh yeah, look, it almost caught on fire years ago. Noticing it's really not damaged too much and it's been very well respected. All the doors are still on the hinges. Of course, these windows could have broken in the storm. A bear could have broken these out easily over the years. So this may or may not be vandalism, but here would be your view. Imagine with me years ago that you're up here all summer or in the winter. That's your view. Of course, in the wintertime, this would be covered with snow. You could even probably see out this window. But in the summertime, you could. I bet those guys were tired. They probably slept like rocks.
I thought this was really interesting.
It is interesting. That's where we were canoeing last week from Navy Beach. Went across there, went right into that delta to Rush Creek, and we came back way over there. Good ways on the lake. What'd you find, Rob?
Concrete.
Oh, it's concrete.
Something rolled on it, I'm thinking. There's nothing in it.
Huh? Interesting. Like a concrete path.
System?
Yeah. Got this building.
We had to bring the ore up here and put it in and start.
Right.
This was the start.
This was the starting process. They had I know they had some mining carts on rails that they would fill up. So maybe they had a little track that came up here. That's what I'm thinking.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, they dumped the carts in here.
And then it funnels down through.
Right, like I said, and then there it went down that way, starting the process.
Yeah.
All the way.
Beautiful view.
Yeah. So you think those telephones on the other side of the hill are still live where the power's going?
That's the direction it was
Yeah,
heading.
it must be like a rural power.
I think so.
Somebody's ranch or something out here.
Look over here, Doug. Someone left the window open.
They sure did. Get better ventilation that way.
Yeah.
There's that fancy pants window you were talking about.
They left it open.
Yeah, see how it comes out? It turns out like that. We can see part of that conveyor belt where the ore was moved into the next process.
And they covered it so it would stay dry.
That was smart. Rob noticed how beefy this building is with the steel supports. It's not like a typical pole barn, three-sided building, because it gets so much snow up here. So they probably had to have this area open in the wintertime because they're putting this is the first spot where the ore would start to be processed. And look at the thickness of this steel. Now remember, that father and son team of truck drivers had to bring that up that steep, steep road. Look at that. We noticed that all these trees that are growing in here are fairly young. And we imagine this whole place was probably cleared out, just level. And this is where the ore carts came in. There's all kinds of heavy scrap steel still up here. Here's all the cross beams. Look at this pile of steel. But even more so, look at the size of these trusses. Look at how thick that steel is. That is amazing they brought that up here. The father and son trucker team of Gus and Augie Hess must have had their hands full on these loads. They must have hauled, like maybe dad had one of these in his truck and his son had another one, or maybe he had the bolts. And then when they got up here, someone had to come up here and put these together. See, they're just together with these big bolts and the nuts on there. That's what we figure anyway. Coming down the back side of the bunkhouse. We think that's where they built a concrete berm to keep the snow melt, the water from the snow melt, rotting out the building.
So just the lighting and the old, they almost look like railroad spikes to climb it.
Right.
I would not climb that pole today.
No.
Look at the size of the lamp in the background back over there.
Yeah.
So they were lighting this whole place up at night. Probably
Yeah.
working through the night.
Right. This is all about business up here. Pulling money right out of the ground. Yeah. Look at this one.
Look at this old belt-driven shaker. Things still move. So these tracks, because this is a cam setup, would go back and forth. And as you poured material in here, it would shake it.
Interesting.
It may have been at an angle so the rocks fall out one side and the material drops through.
That makes sense.
It's all still here.
Yep.
And there's the belt drive that drove the belt. And you can see on the other side, it's gear reducted to slow it down. I guess the belt was wrapped around that drum and probably went back to the other side.
Right. Where the conveyor belt is. I see, yeah, up there. I'm going to cross here, over there, into that one. And then from there, into that one. So you think of being all your years as a contractor, this is basically sliding off the side of the mountain, even with that big block wall there?
Yeah, it looks like it's starting to slide in.
Starting to slide in. Just the laws of gravity, huh?
Yeah.
And the ravages of time.
This is another drum, a liquid drum here. And you can see the feet coming down, so all they did was wrap it with steel to make a building.
Right.
That was a drum right there.
Right. That's where it first came in after the first reduction. That was the first reduction of the ore. And then it went that way.
Up another belt system into another drum.
Rob said this cave-in on this roof section wasn't here 2 years ago. That was just before we had that huge winter with all the record-breaking snows. I'll bet you that snow was just so heavy it just broke through. That's probably what happened. There's another shot of that.
Come on, buddy, lead the way. What's in here, Oreo?
Oreo led Rob into this.
So that'll tell you how much snow weight there was. It actually bent.
Yeah.
the cross beams. Folded them.
Yeah, folded those. Look at that. Look at these. That's just from that heavy snow we had 2 years ago. Huh.
Life.
Wow. Check this out. Oh, amazing. Look at this.
That looks like a giant rock tumbler.
That's where it came in. Look at that. Huh.
It's a giant snow cone.
Oh, there we go. Right? You can see where it transferred in. Looks like there's still some material in it.
Gold.
Yep. Watch out for the glass for the puppy. There's some glass right there. Okay, you missed it. Goodness. What do we have here?
Another very large motor.
Westinghouse,
with
CW.
several belts on the back, turning this wheel that looks like turned the rock tumbler. And then as it came out of this, it splashed into here with obviously some liquid.
Yeah. That must have been where the, yeah, that's okay.
Came down into here. I'll let you go up there.
Okay. There it is.
This was a compressor setup.
Did you see that behind you where it kind of looks like it's a condenser?
Yeah.
See up on the wall? What was that for?
Look at
See
that. Yeah. Yep.
What would that be for?
That was a transformer.
Oh, a transformer.
That's a transformer.
Okay.
Power
Oh,
came
there
in.
it is.
Here it is, all of them right here.
Ball mill. It's the ball mill. That's where we're at, the ball mill. Look at that.
Now that is where they could increase or decrease the speed of this engine behind us
Oh, by turning this.
by turning that.
Oh, look, it's marked on it too.
Yep.
Off, on. It's on now.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going into this part. This is the part where the roof caved in from the snow. You can kind of see all the... Yeah. I know I keep saying it, but I can really get a feeling that this mine was really squared away. And if you were a miner wanting to work someplace, this would be the place you'd want to work. If you could deal with the long winter and the snow, but I can just tell that they were squared away with the machinery. Must be some kind of rinse table.
It looks like a rinse table to me, and they have plumbing on the wall for the
Right.
water coming in.
Right?
And then it went through these two bins, and the pipe actually goes to...
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
reservoir.
Right through there in the back. Makes sense.
So here's all the conduits coming in and going out. It's pretty amazing. And this dates it. This would be pre-1950 with the screw-in style fuses.
There you go, everybody. Straight from the horse's mouth, the electrician. Well, Rob, what do you think? It seems like you pretty much know exactly what's going on with all the electrical up here. If they ever open this mine up again, I bet you could get a job up here full time, just rewiring the whole place.
Yeah, it's ready for a remodel. This is some pretty outdated equipment. The most alarming thing is the steel handle on a 200 amp disconnect.
Yeah,
I guess you'd want to wear gloves.
yeah. That sure looks like an old truck headlight from like a 1957 Peterbilt or something.
I can't imagine having to run this mine at night.
That would have been surreal. All the lights and all the noise all night long, and the snow outside, cold. Rob's going to explain this electrical system.
This is a step-down transformer. You can't step up, you can only step down. So where the power comes in and starts going through all the plates, by the time it gets to the end, it's reduced. Probably for one of the motors behind us.
Right out of the transformer and right into this big electric motor.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 belts driving this one.
Wow.
So look at this, Doug. This was a fan-induced furnace.
A fan-induced furnace. There's a, was that temperature gauge or something?
That is a temperature gauge.
So I see what Rob is talking about. This is just like a big bellows for like a blacksmith, and it's basically like turbocharging, forcing the air, the oxygen in there to really make it heat up. Look at this big water pump over here. Thing's huge. Huh. When you get up here, you can really get an idea of the size of this. It's like something you'd see on a ship. Just all these big, huge steel parts just sitting here resting away. I'm going to look at the label on it. See if I can see anything that identifies it. The DORR company. What's up with these mixers? Maybe from all that slurry. Looks like propellers. Huh. Interesting. This is like all the parts pile or something. Strewn all different parts. Let's see. We have found an old truck trailer axle. Still got the tires on it. Looks like it had the old tubes in it.
The casting, these bolts.
Yeah, yeah, they're just right there. You can see where it swiveled here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's in there, Rob?
Doors. It opened at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
That's what those mechanisms are on the other side. So
Right.
something opened this up and it dumped.
Well, everybody, I'm glad you can join me with Rob and Oreo. We had a good time up here at the mine, and we'll see you next time.